I tell you that other one time was the time. You got it already.
Hello, welcome to Rumbii. I'm your host, Rumbii. I'm back. It's been a while. I took a little bit of a break. I am glad to say that it has nothing to do with my mental health. Life just got busy. As you know, my husband is a teacher, and the last couple months of the school year are very hectic. He's also the coach at the school, so he had tournaments, he had exams to mark, he had report cards to do, and just to make things a little bit more spicy, I guess, he enrolled into school. He was in school for 2 months, the last 2 months of the school year, and naturally I had to put my stuff on the side in order to support him, because when I was in school, he did that for me. He also put his creative stuff on the side just so he could support me as best as he could. And so I did the same for him. And I'm glad I was able to. It was difficult. It was hard. It was long. But he passed. He passed with a 97%. So I'm so proud of him. And I knew he was going to do it. But it was just a difficult time. So naturally, podcast, vlogging, any content creation had to go on hold. And now I'm back. I think I'm back. I say I think I'm back because when my husband finished school, he finished around the same time as his teaching did. And that very day he finished, he got on a flight and went to BC to see his brother. It was his brother's stag do, and he was gone for about 5 days. So as a continuation of that crazy 2 months, I had a week alone with the dog, which I'd never done. And you guys have heard me talk about dog ownership and how I can only do it because I'm doing it with someone. So it was a little bit of a big fear for me. I was really scared to be alone with a dog. I didn't say anything about it though, because I wanted to challenge myself to see if I can actually just do it and not entertain the fear. Boy, I was scared. I was so scared because Nala can sometimes be a pain. She is very smart, which means that she can also get very smart with her bad behavior. And so I was worried about that. So in an effort to avoid any bad behavior, I just let her do whatever she wants. I got rid of all the rules I had put. I gave her treats whenever she asked for them. She slept in the bed with me. And, it's funny. Past me would have thought, what are you doing? You've set these rules, now you're breaking them, you're going back on yourself. It's not really being consistent with the training that I'm trying to give her. But now that I've done it and we had such a pleasant time, I realized that my rules were kind of limiting my relationship with Nala, because I feel like we definitely bonded in that time, and I underestimated just how much further being nice to your dog actually helps them be nicer to you, And I'm not saying that she's a bad dog or a horrible dog. No, it's just that we have some listening issues. But that's, like I said, she's a very smart, strong-headed dog. So sometimes I get to the point where I reach my limit and I get frustrated, and as a result I don't like Nala because of it, because I'm like, you're not listening to me. But taking a step back and not having any rules and just letting her do her thing actually made me realize that we communicate better when I'm nice to her, instead of trying to put rules in place for her. If I just work with her, meet her where she's at, we actually have a good time. And that's exactly what happened. So yeah, I guess it's the African in me. I also have to acknowledge the fact that this is the first dog that I've had to live and share my home with. I haven't had a dog in 20 years, over 20 years. Gosh, probably 25 years at this point. I actually don't remember the last time I had a dog. I wasn't in England. I was definitely in Zimbabwe. So over 20 years ago. And so, again, I was a child. I had help with looking after these dogs. So I'm learning too, right? I'm learning to be with a dog in an apartment, not a house. And yeah, she's just been so sweet and kind, and I'm also much more sweet and kind to her. And yeah, I think that was a good exercise for us. We have a wedding. We are going to a wedding in Colombia in September. So like I mentioned, it was my brother-in-law's stag do that Dean went to Vancouver for. They are getting married in September, and I'm so excited. But this is also going to be our first opportunity for us to go away and leave Nala, because when I found out how dogs travel by plane, I almost cried. I'm not kidding you. I almost cried because I could not believe that they put them they put them in with like the cargo. That's so sad. I could never do that to my dog. So naturally that means she's not coming. And I don't think we're ever going to travel with her. We also have a trip back to England soon. I'll talk about that another time. But, because of that, we've now had to like find daycare for her, and we're going to try out to see if she can do daycare, because I don't think she's ever been to daycare. And as we know, she has reactive issues. So I'm not confident. Although the daycare that I found, they separate big dogs and little dogs. They stay separate, which is perfect for us because Nala is specifically reactive to little dogs. So we haven't tried them out yet. I think there's like a process to the intake, and I'll definitely keep you guys updated on that. But I'm trying to set that up for our September trip so that she's taken care of and we don't worry about what's happening to her. And also because it's a family wedding, everybody's traveling, so we don't really have any family to like leave her with. So yeah, this is our opportunity to try this out, and then we'll have a second chance when we go back to England to try it again. The England trip, there will be family around who we can leave her with, but I think it's still worth putting her in daycare just so she can like socialize, because she doesn't really get to socialize with dogs, and we've just accepted that's just our dog. She cannot be around too many dogs. Every single dog that she's been friends with, she's ruined that friendship. So it's just not worth it. And yeah, that's that's what I've been thinking regarding my dog. But because of all of the stuff that's been happening, like I said, I had to put my creativity on the side. And I thought that once Dean was back, I would jump straight back in and like start creating. That didn't happen. That did not happen. And unfortunately, I'm sad. I'm sad again, which, surprise, right? Like, I hope this helps you understand what I mean when I say I'm always depressed. Like, it's something that I've gotten so comfortable with, and now I'm learning to communicate that to the people around me, to communicate that I'm sad, communicate that I'm having a tough time. So that's where I'm at right now. I actually think this specific bout of sadness is actually attached to my menstrual cycle. So I want to talk about the menstrual cycle, the period, ant flow, whatever you want to call it, because I have never had a regular period. Never. And it sucks because our periods are controlled by hormones. So if they're not regular, it means your hormones are irregular. And I already know this. I have 2 diagnoses. One is PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. This is when you get cysts or cells growing on your ovaries to make them abnormal. And because of this, it affects how the egg is released from my ovaries. And there are many other side effects that come with PCOS. One of them, the most noticeable ones, are weight gain and the difficulty of losing that weight, which I've dealt with for a very long time. I was actually diagnosed in 2016. I have to also admit and say, when I got diagnosed, 2016, how many years ago was that? Oh my gosh. Now you're going to see how bad my math is. 2016. It's been 8 years, right? And in that 8 years, have I changed my lifestyle to accommodate my PCOS? No. No, I haven't. And I have to admit and say that it's also part of, I guess, just being young. Being a young person, you think you're invincible. You speak to doctors and you think you know better. And that's exactly what happened in this situation. I got my diagnosis, I put it in my bag, and I walked away and never tried to do anything about it. Until this year. This year was the very first time that I started to actually make a PCOS friendly grocery list. Can you believe that? 8 years later. So naturally, I've had to deal with a lot of the side effects. Another more noticeable side effect is what is described as male patterned hair growth. I don't know why it's described that, because everybody grows hair in all these parts of the bodies, but that includes getting facial hair, hair on my chest, extremely hairy everywhere else. So I have very hairy legs, very hairy arms. I used to try shaving my arms, but I realized that it's a losing battle. So I completely stopped with my arms, but legs, society expects me to. So I do. Not in the winter though. No. In the winter, nuh-uh. That's extra warmth. So those are the two main side effects that I can talk about regarding PCOS. But that can also, because of the cysts growing on your ovaries, that can cause an irregular period. And as you know, like I mentioned, periods are very hormonal. So if you've already got a irregular period, it means your hormones are already irregular. And add the PCOS diagnosis, and then I also got diagnosed with adenomyosis 2 years ago. And adenomyosis is basically the process where the tissue that grows within the uterus starts to grow in the uterine lining. For those of you that don't know, a period is when the uterine lining sheds. That's why there's so much blood and sometimes there's clots and bits. I know that's very graphic, but that's the reality of it. And so that's the uterine lining shedding. And with someone with a regular period, that happened in a 28-day cycle, and it's regular. But because of these two diagnoses that I have, my body is all over the place. It's a lot. I'm not going to lie to you. It's a lot. I really want to cry right now, but I'm not going to because, let me have a sip of my sparkling water. So, the reason why I'm getting emotional is because I feel like I'm falling through the cracks. I feel that way about my mental health. I feel that way about my physical health, my menstrual health. And the reason why I say so is because I have a gynecologist. My doctor knows about all these issues that I have. But I just feel like I'm not being taken seriously. And I'm just being left to deal with the consequences of my body. Like, at this point in time, I feel like I need to find a black doctor. I need to find a black gynecologist, because I feel like I'm not being listened to. I'm sick and tired of being given medications, and every single person that gives me medication never asks me about any other medication I'm taking. And so as a result, I have all these medications in me in an already irregular body, and now I'm having side effects of these medications being put together. And it's just like right now I'm having this weird week. I don't feel like myself. 3 weeks ago, I took my last dose of progesterone. And for those who don't know what progesterone is, it's the hormone that helps trigger your period. So before a period, people with uteruses, they have a high level of progesterone. And when the progesterone suddenly falls, that is the trigger for a period. That's what starts the process. And you bleed for about 5 to 7 days, and then things go back, and then slowly but surely progesterone starts increasing again until the drop. That's the cycle. The cycle is a lot more complex than that, and I'm not going to go into that much detail because this will end up being like a 10-part series just about the menstrual cycle. Is that dog hair just floating in the air? Yeah. I had to take a moment for that. So with me, because I have PCOS, I do not have the right levels of progesterone. In fact, I actually have what's considered the male hormone, and I did it in quotations because it's not just for men. Every human being has testosterone, but it's more prominent in males. Anyway, so my progesterone is very low and my testosterone is very high. And so you can imagine what that does to your cycle. I have had consistently irregular periods ever since they started. And I've spoken to so many doctors, and all I've gotten were diagnoses, and that's it. I haven't actually been given any treatment. And it's just gotten to that point where it's like, I need better doctors, you know? I need doctors who would take me seriously, because again, with irregular periods, they don't take you seriously unless you're trying to conceive, which I'm not. So they always tell me, come back when you're ready to conceive. And it's like, what about now? What about what I'm going through right now? And so when I got my adenomyosis diagnosis, oh, that rhymes, 2 years ago, I had a period for 6 months. Yes, you heard that right. I had a period for 6 months. Sometimes it was heavy, sometimes it was light, sometimes it was very light spotting. But my point here is it didn't stop for 6 months. And so it culminated with me having a severe episode of menorrhea, which is like heavy bleeding. I also had pain, which I guess is it's described as dysmenorrhea because it's pain and heavy bleeding. I actually had to go to the hospital, and at the time I thought, oh, okay, everyone's like taking me seriously, like we're actually gonna do something about this. But the moment they heard that I'm not trying to conceive, they just sent me home. They sent me home. They gave me a gynecologist who only saw me twice and forgot to actually give me a pap smear, which I actually had to do at my doctor's office instead. You see what I mean? I feel like I'm going crazy. So anyway, last time I spoke to my doctor about this, they obviously realized that I have very low progesterone levels. So they gave me progesterone supplements that I have to take for 10 days in the month. I take it every day for 10 days. And once I take it, I should get a period, because that 10-day period of taking it, I guess I'm mimicking what the body should do, which is increase progesterone and then suddenly drop to trigger a period. That's how I get my periods. I have to chemically induce them. If I don't get a period. And there's been years where I've never had a period, like a whole year with no period. Honestly speaking, younger me was not complaining. I wasn't complaining, because periods are difficult, they're painful, they hurt, they're messy. You have to constantly like worry about, are you leaking, are you not? So definitely when I was younger, I didn't care as much. But now that I look back on it, I'm like, that's not good. That's not good. Like, you went a whole year without a period. That's not good. So I just feel like I feel overwhelmed, because not only am I having to advocate for myself, I'm also going through these hormonal imbalances. And I think that's what I'm going through right now. Like I was saying, I'm having such a weird week. I feel off. I don't feel like myself. And I took my last dose of the progesterone that was given 2 weeks ago, and I had a period, which was actually stopping a period. Let me explain. When I took the progesterone, I had actually been having a constant cycle for about 3 months. Yeah, I had a period for 3 months. That's just my life. And that's why I'm talking about this, because I think it's important that we talk about these things, because I have never spoken to anyone who goes through what I go through. My sisters have something similar, but their situations are different. And they've also had children. So that has helped with like regulating everything in their body. I'm the only one who was yet to have a child. And so as a result, I'm just dealing with the natural irregularities of my body. And I'm not trying to have a baby. I'm not rushing to do that. I don't want to have a baby right now. And I'm not just going to do it just for the sake of fixing my body, because that's a whole life you're bringing into the world. I get the point, but I'm not just going to do it for the sake of fixing myself. You know, there are other things you need to be prepared to do before you become a parent. Anyway, that's besides the point. So having had that 3-month period, I took my progesterone, and that helped with triggering another period. But, another thing I forgot to mention, adenomyosis, what it does. So because you're having cells that are in the uterus growing in the uterine lining, what that happens now is that it makes the uterine lining heavier and bigger than it's supposed to. So, you know, the period is the shedding of the uterine lining, but because of adenomyosis, mine is too big. It's too heavy. It's too thick. And so it sheds for longer than what a regular uterus would. And that's why I get the excessive bleeding and all of those lovely, lovely things. And that's why sometimes I bleed for such long periods of time, because can you imagine if I went a year without a period? Can you imagine how thick my uterine lining was when I finally got my period? And so that's what's happening to me. It's not like I'm losing blood or anything like that. It's just that the lining is thicker than it's supposed to be. And so those 3 months, I got to a point when I was like, okay, how are we going to stop this? And after speaking to my doctor, like, they told me ways to take these medications and how they aid with the hormonal imbalances in my body. But when I took the progesterone, it did what it did, and it gave me a period. But that meant I had to shed that thick, heavy lining. And it was a pain. It was such a pain because of those two diagnoses, I bleed a lot more than regular. I bleed a lot more than most people do. And It's terrifying. Like, I'm not kidding you. It's so terrifying because I timed it. On my heaviest day, I can only wear any form of like pad, tampon, pull-ups, anything. I can only wear it for 50 minutes before it's full. It doesn't matter if it's super plus 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 plus. If I have a tampon, a pad, a diaper, everything on, it doesn't matter. 50 minutes, I timed it. I was changing every 50 minutes. And so can you imagine how that is when you wake up in the morning? Every morning I was waking up in a pool of my own blood, which is not fun because you have to clean up and to do laundry and to clean yourself. And so, yeah, that's what my period was like. And it sucked. And it made me emotional. And I feel like the older I'm getting, the more emotional I'm getting because of my hormonal imbalances. And it just was not a fun time. It just wasn't. That's why when I thought that with Dean finishing school and everything being done, I'll get back into creating again, I couldn't just get back into it because I was dealing with my menstrual cycle. I have to say though, it's gone, which I'm so glad, because after 3 months of constantly having it, it's kind of nice. I'm currently my second week period free. And it's nice. But then part of me is also worried, like, does this mean that I'm not going to have one for a while? Like, we'll see. But I just wanted to talk to you guys about it because you know me, I'm all about talking about things that people don't usually talk about and things that need to be signal boosted to as many people as possible. When I actually had my period a couple weeks ago, I had a friend of mine come see me. Her name is Rumbii as well, which is I don't know why I did that. But Rumbii came to see me and she brought her niece with her, who's about 12. And I told her about it. I explained to her what I was going through because everything that I'm going through, I'm only realizing now. I'm only learning now as I go through it. Nobody ever told me. No other woman has ever told me about going through this stuff. My sisters have. Because obviously, like I said, a lot of times this stuff is genetic too. So my sisters have also gone through issues like that. But they never went into the nitty-gritty details. And also, like I said, they've all since had children. So that's changed what happens in their bodies. So yeah, I know this was a bit TMI, but TMI is literally my middle name at this point. I will tell you what is happening in my uterus. So I'm also sharing this because in a way it's my way of also just like processing what I'm going through. Like I said, I feel like I'm falling through the cracks. I feel like every medical professional that I speak to about this isn't taking me seriously, and they don't actually want to give me a solution. They just want to give me a temporary thing, which is a medication, which I have to pay for, which means they make more money off of me. So it just sucks. It sucks because not only am I taking medication for my menstrual cycle, I'm also taking medication for my mental health. And of course they interact. They do. But nobody has actually ever explained to me how they interact. I have to do that research myself. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. I just wanted to tell you guys that I'm still here. The podcast will continue. It will continue when I can. But I just wanted to let you know what I've been going through. And I hope that if you're going through something similar, you have the confidence to speak to your doctor and advocate for yourself enough to actually get the support that you need, the treatment that you need, not just something to manage the symptoms, because I feel like that's where I'm at right now. All I'm doing is just managing symptoms. And the only alternative I'm being given is to either have a baby or take out my womb. And I feel like, as a scientist, I just feel like there has to be another solution. There has to be. But that's just the world we live in. Gynecology is fronted by men. Men are the ones doing the research. Not enough women are doing the research. There are women in gynecology, but not enough of them are in a powerful position enough to do research and also implement it into the healthcare system. So, yeah, hopefully, if there's more of us patients forcing our healthcare practitioners to do something about it, there will be better care for us. I hope that you stay awesome, be kind, and spread positivity.
Rumbee's podcast. Rumbee's podcast. Yeah. Rumbee's podcast. What? Rumbee's podcast. Rumbee's podcast. This is Rumbee's podcast. What? Rumbee's podcast. Yeah. Rumbee's podcast. Oh yeah.
I'm telling you that other one time was the time. You got it already.